We are live. We are live. I'm Dr. Frita, and welcome to another Medical Monday, where we talk about celebrity health and all of the hot health topics in the headlines. Today, we have a special episode, politics versus medicine. You know, these health headlines have been red hot over this past week. And so now we'll break some things down. And as always, we'll keep it evidence-based. We'll start off with my favorite little game, myth versus fact. Well, we'll ask the question, Tylenol in pregnancy, does it cause autism? So I'll present you with some myth versus facts questions. And of course, you will participate, and then we'll have a great conversation. Then we'll get into our weekly dose, where I give you a fresh take on medicine you simply can't get anywhere else. We'll start off with the FDA's announcement on Tylenol and autism. Should you worry? I'll let you know if you should be worried. We'll talk about it. Next, we'll talk about Leucovorin. That's a very major announcement that Trump made when it came to autism. Leucovorin as a treatment. And so we'll actually get into the science. Is Leucovorin a treatment for autism? Is this a medical treatment or a media hype? We'll talk, or medical hype. We'll talk about it, and we'll use evidence to talk about it, of course. And then we will talk about political pressure. With a lot of the political announcements relating to medical advice, well, many of the major health organizations like Georgia State Medical Association, American Academy of Pediatrics, American College of Physicians, the Society of Maternal Fetal Medicine, a lot of these major reputable organizations have come out and gone against the political announcement. And so we'll talk about, yes, political pressure, politics versus medicine. What should you do? Are you confused? Well, we'll get less confused as we go through this Medical Monday. And then if we have time, we'll hit on some very important topics that have also been covered in the hot health headlines. One, the hepatitis B vaccine. That was a vote that was supposed to be made by RFK Jr.'s ACIP, but they kind of backed out of the vote. But we'll talk about hepatitis B and the pros and cons of giving that vaccine at birth, okay? And then we'll also hit on whooping cough, okay? Because whooping cough is at a major outbreak, the highest numbers in 35 years, specifically in Louisiana. So we've got a jam-packed show today, and I want you to go ahead and give us a like as we get started, because as always, we're giving you evidence-based medicine. I'm Dr. Frita. Let's go ahead and get this show rolling. All right. Welcome. I'm Dr. Frita. This is Medical Monday. We're giving evidence-based information on celebrity health and all of the hot health topics in the headlines. This is our special episode, politics versus medicine. You know I'm not doing this thing alone. To my office manager and my co-host, Miss Shador. Please come to the front of the stage. How you doing, Shador?
Good, Dr. Frita. How are you?
I like your hair.
Thank you. A little something different.
I like it. You had a good weekend?
I did. How about yourself?
It was pretty good, but I will tell you, I got my flu vaccine. And of course, as always, they sit there and they tell me, oh, you know, you may experience some flu-like symptoms and and take Tylenol. And so I'm sitting here listening like, I'm a doctor. I don't need you to tell me. Do you know, the next day, I just was so sleepy and just kind of feeling, and I didn't know why. And I was like, oh, shoot. That doggone vaccine. So that was just for one day. And then now I'm back in action. But I just want to remind people, flu before boo. It is recommended that you get your flu vaccines before Halloween. Well, at least these are the previous CDC recommendations. We'll see where things go. But I'm very excited about today's show. This is our special episode because, as you know, Shador, and as many of my med heads might know, I had a lot of action in media this past week, right? When Donald Trump made that major announcement about Tylenol, pregnancy, and autism, I was asked to be on the Don Lemon Show that same day. And so if y'all follow me on all social media platforms at Dr.Frita, you'll see where I was on with Don Lemon, and we broke down the science about Tylenol, autism, and we also talked some about Leucovorin. We'll go into more of that today. And then I was also asked to be on the Washington, D.C., Fox 5 D.C. on the same day, where I gave my input. And then on that very next morning, bright and early, I was on Morning in America. That's News Nation, a national news outlet. You know, Dan Abrams is on that channel. Chris Cuomo is on that channel. So I was on that channel and I had an interview with Kelly Beeson. And again, we were talking about Tylenol, pregnancy, and autism. So it's really a hot topic with a lot of confusion, especially given that all of the major medical organizations that I've seen have been in disagreement with that announcement from RFK Jr. and with Donald Trump. And when there's confusion, there's oftentimes inaction. People just do nothing, or they don't know what to do. And so I want to clear up a lot of that confusion with evidence, because on this Dr. Frita channel, we talk evidence-based medicine, which we're about to get right into. But first, I want to thank everyone who follows me and who subscribes to me here on YouTube. We are now over 900,000 subscribers, over 900,000 subscribers. And I just want to really just thank you for coming, for supporting me, for believing in the evidence-based information that I share, for sharing my videos. It's starting to be where I'll be out in public and folks will say, hey, I watch you. Or, oh, hey, I shared this information with my husband, with my mother-in-law, so forth and so on. And I just really appreciate it, because we work hard to make sure we give you information in a way that is evidence-based. We don't just go on theories and themes and a scheme that was set up by Todd to come to us. We don't do that. We keep it evidence-based. And so I appreciate y'all. If you are not a subscriber, please come join the party, be a subscriber, and even better, become a member. If you click the link in the description, you can join our membership. Every month, we have a live Q&A, members only. And that's where, instead of me doing a whole hour talking about hot health topics, you ask me questions, you can come up on stage, and I give you medical information that is really tailored to you. That's a members only perk that we have. And then we also have other levels of membership where I give you members only videos every week. I just posted one on this past Saturday. Oh, what am I talking about? I'm like a box of chocolates, honey. You never know what you're going to get. But let's go ahead and get rolling. And I'm actually really excited because we might actually have some special guests today to help us with this politics versus medicine when it comes to Tylenol and autism. Just stay tuned. You never know what we're going to have today. All right. But who was the first one in the chat, Shador?
First in the chat today is newest member, Miss Maxine.
Hi, Miss. Oh, yay. Thank you for being a member, and welcome, Miss Maxine. Welcome. All right. All my med heads, get ready, because this is my favorite segment, Myth versus Fact. And this is where I ask you the questions. You can ask me some questions later, but this is where I ask you the questions. So this Myth versus Fact is on Tylenol. Tylenol in pregnancy, does it really cause autism? Let's play the clip first, Shador, and then we'll get into Myth versus Fact.
All right. Oh, it's coming.
President Trump issuing a strong warning to pregnant women.
Taking Tylenol is not good.
Suggesting without evidence the number of children born with autism would decrease if expectant moms stopped using acetaminophen.
This will be as important as any single thing I've done.
On social media, a flurry of reaction.
Tylenol was created after the discovery of autism. After. I'm like shaking. I'm so angry right now.
Tylenol being a contributor to autism makes so much sense.
But not one major medical organization supports the Trump administration's view on acetaminophen. The American Academy of Pediatrics saying the White House event on autism was filled with dangerous claims and misleading information. The American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists saying in more than 2 decades of research on the use of acetaminophen in pregnancy, not a single reputable study has successfully concluded that the use of acetaminophen in any trimester of pregnancy causes neurodevelopmental disorders in children. OBGYN Dr. Lucky Seacon has been fielding phone calls from concerned patients, but her guidance remains the same.
If they have pain or they have fever, they should treat it. Use the Tylenol as directed affected. It's really key to the health of the pregnancy and your future child.
The debate causing confusion and stress for some expecting mothers. Emily Hoyman is 8 months pregnant and has taken Tylenol throughout her pregnancy on her doctor's advice.
We should listen to doctors and not politicians when making medical choices. We have enough things to be stressed about, to be worried about when we're moms.
Whitney Villanueva is a pharmacist and mother of 2 autistic children. She worries mothers who take Tylenol and then have a child with autism might blame themselves.
Maybe you could have done everything perfect and you still would have been gifted this child.
To be clear, this guidance on acetaminophen is not from the CDC. It is solely coming from the Trump administration and the FDA. In a published letter, the FDA says doctors should consider minimizing the use of acetaminophen during pregnancy. That language, guys, not going nearly as far as what the president said.
All right, now it's time for myth versus fact. Shador, do you see a guest here?
No, not yet, Dr. Frita.
Not yet. Okay, she said that she's here, so we're just going to verify her and see what we need to do. Let's see, and be on the lookout in case you get any messages on the best way to call her up.
Okay.
Okay. All right. And apparently, okay, to our guest, okay, we're working on sending you an updated link. So please take a look. It might be a number you don't recognize, but just take a look for an updated link that should be coming soon. But meanwhile, we'll go ahead and we'll do the myth versus fact statement. And as soon as we get her in with the proper link, then I have a guest, y'all, you're going to love her, who'll be able to give us some very great information on this topic, some firsthand information. All right, myth versus fact. Let's get it going. Tylenol in pregnancy, does it cause autism?
Taking Tylenol while pregnant is proven to cause autism.
Okay, taking Tylenol while pregnant is proven to cause autism. Put an M1 if that's a myth. Put an F1 if that's a fact.
All right, ready for statement 2, Dr. Frita?
Yes, myth versus fact. Statement number 2.
Untreated fever during pregnancy is harmless, so it's better to just tough it out.
Tough it out. And that's really what Trump said. He said, you try to just tough it out. That's what he said. So is it better to just tough it out, having a fever during pregnancy? Put an M1, an M2 if that's a myth. Put an F2 if that's a fact. All right. All right, pencils down. Let's go ahead and go over these statements. Well,
All right. Bless you, Sean. All right. Statement 1 again. Taking Tylenol while pregnant is proven to cause autism.
all right, what do we say?
Overwhelmingly. Then one stands myth. You have huge.
Okay.
Welcome back. Says a myth.
Yeah, welcome back. So you say it's a myth, that it's not proven. Okay.
Anton says a myth.
Okay. Hi, Anton. Welcome back.
I can see clearly says it's a myth.
Okay, good.
Our member, Miss Andrea, says a myth.
Hi, thank you for being a member, Miss Andrea. Good.
From Facebook, Augustus says it is a myth.
Hi, welcome from Facebook.
And from IG, they're agreeing as well. Ron says a myth.
All right, thank you, Ron. Ooh, what did I do for y'all on IG? Lady Merlot. Mm-hmm.
All saying myth.
All saying myth. All right, good deal. Did anyone say fact that taking Tylenol pregnancy is proven to cause autism?
Miss Joe said fact on this one.
That it is proven. Okay, which I could see why someone might say that, since we've had all of these announcements from the White House from the podium. All right. So myth versus fact, taking Tylenol while pregnancy has been proven to cause autism. That is a myth. That is a myth. And we'll be talking more about it. But not only do we have no proof of it, we also have had our largest study, which looked at 2.4 million children born in Sweden. It was published in 2024 in JAMA. And of those children, 185,000 of their mothers took acetaminophen while pregnant with them. So what they did, they compared them to siblings. They compared them to mothers who did not take acetaminophen. And there was found to be no increased risk for autism in the mothers who took acetaminophen. Okay. And we're talking about a 2.4 million study as far as 2.4 million children. There have been many other studies. We have decades of information. Now, there also have been some studies which show a correlation, but correlation does not equal causation, which we'll get into. All right, let's look at myth versus fact statement number 2.
Untreated fever during pregnancy is harmless, so it's better to just tough it out.
All right. What do they say?
We have Marina says it is a myth. Donamichi agrees that it is a myth.
Okay.
TT NQ says fact.
It's a fact that's better to tough it out. Okay.
Miss Katrina says a myth.
Okay.
Sherry says a myth as well.
Okay.
Miss Joe is going with fact on this one as well.
That's a fact that it's better to tough it out if you have a fever during pregnancy. Okay.
Miss Aileen agrees. A fact.
Okay.
And I remember Miss Rosalind says a myth.
You say it's a myth. All right. Okay. All right. And so read that statement for me one more time. The myth versus fact statement number 2.
Mm-hmm. Untreated fever during pregnancy is harmless, so it's better to just tough it out.
Okay. So this is a myth. It is a myth. And I know that Trump made a statement. He was like, oh, there's no downside. But there is a very serious downside if you have a fever during pregnancy. Having fever during pregnancy can actually cause birth defects. It can cause preterm labor. It can cause all kinds of issues. And I have a guest who's coming today who can tell us firsthand about what happens with fever and pregnancy. And she can also answer some questions from a larger standpoint as far as the different medical organizations. I mentioned that a lot of the major organizations, American Academy of Pediatrics, American Medical Association, American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology, major organizations, and Georgia State Medical Association as well. Well, our first guest is no other than Dr. Ju Delivers, J-U, Dr. Ju Delivers. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
I'm so happy to have you. Not only is Dr. Ju an OBGYN, okay, as in she takes care of pregnant women who sometimes have pain, who sometimes have fever. So she can tell you firsthand on the advice that she normally gives to her patients. And she'll also let you know if these political announcements are making her do a 180 and make a change. But in addition, we'll get a chance to have her because she represents the Georgia State Medical Association as the president. So welcome so much, Dr. Ju. And what do you prefer to be called? Do you go by Dr. Ju, Dr. Birt Adams?
Dr. Ju, actually. You are fine.
J-U. So welcome. Glad to have you. So we just opened up with our myth versus fact. Look, I love playing games where we talked about myth versus fact. Has it been proven that Tylenol causes autism? And it's better to have a fever and just suffer through it than to give Tylenol. And we had a little bit of mixed answers on the second question where some people said, hey, it's better to just tough it out and have a fever. So can you please share your perspective on these announcements, Tylenol and pregnancy versus autism? What are you telling your patients?
Absolutely. Thank you again for having me. So I tell my patients exactly what the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, as you just said, and all the other organizations, the pediatric population, who, World Health Organization, FDA. I tell my patients exactly what we have known at least all of my career, and that it is acetaminophen, the brand name Tylenol, of course, is safest in pregnancy. And before I even get into the current hoopla and the announcement and the concern about that, my personal concern, Dr. Frita, is that, well, did we also say what other options the patients have? And I'm nervous, really nervous for women out there who will now just default and take ibuprofen for that headache or for that pain or to try to reduce the fever. And we know that ibuprofen is a concern. First trimester, there are studies that show a possible increased risk of miscarriage. And then second trimester, not as much in second trimester, but we still don't want you to take it. And in the third trimester, we're really concerned about ibuprofen in pregnancy because it can cause, I'll just give a general, it can cause a problem with the fetus's ability to circulate heart, the blood through the heart, and basically the premature closure of a vital blood vessel that is present while the fetus is inside the womb, but it closes, after delivery, and it's supposed to close after delivery. But ibuprofen could cause it prematurely to close and then lead to pulmonary hypertension. It could cause kidney disease. So I am concerned that the message about don't take Tylenol for the millions of women in America who are right now pregnant, I don't want them to say, oh, well, then let me take this instead. So I just wanted to share my concern there.
And it's a real trip because what you're mentioning, so of course I'm a kidney doctor, and so you're talking about causing kidney issues, ibuprofen, exactly. And then in my training, I did a med peds residency at Georgetown, and so of course I did NICU, the neonatal ICU rotations, where we see these issues. And as far as toughing out fever, we know that fever has problems. It can cause a miscarriage. It can cause preterm delivery. It can cause birth defects. And so you're telling people to tough out a fever, but the fever is not benign. And if you give mothers options, like you said, they'll find an option. Just because something is over the counter, that does not make it benign. And so taking ibuprofen is not something that we recommend in pregnancy.
Exactly. And so again, to the latest breaking news of not taking Tylenol in pregnancy, we know that it is safe. Just because something a study has found an association does not mean that there's causation. And even some of the studies that I believe that the White House was referencing, when they take in account confounding factors, that association even disappears. So we will continue to say, as ACOG did, and I was appreciative of that, and I shared it on my own platforms, that it is safe. We want you and need you to reduce the fevers. And for mild pain, it's the go-to. When my patients are first seeing me and they're freshly pregnant, I give them a handout to say, ladies, these are the medications that we have studied for decades and time again, and we know that they are safe. I am so sure people may reference and know that there is a certain threshold, right? Whether you're pregnant or not, we don't recommend that people take too much Tylenol, right? So you don't want to take more than normally 3,000 milligrams, and some people it may be okay for 4,000 milligrams up to, but that's the exception. 3,000 milligrams, we don't want to shoot out the fetus or the pregnant person's liver. Exactly. But we do not, for the reasons that you mentioned, we definitely want to technically, lower the temperature. We don't want fevers to persist. We don't want women to experience unnecessary pain.
Absolutely. Which is a bit barbaric also, just tough it out, as if women aren't going through enough, especially pregnant women. And Shador, this is my office manager and my co-host, Shador. So Dr. Zhu, we're going to get into our weekly dose where we give you a fresh take on medicine you can't get anywhere else. And we're going to go a little further into that FDA announcement. And the question is, should you worry? And so we'll play a clip of Donald Trump with his announcement, as well as RFK Jr. And I will note that when Donald Trump was on the stage, when President Trump was there, he was saying, don't take Tylenol, just don't take it, just don't do it. The FDA letter actually tempers that down a little bit, and they say, take it judiciously, only take it for short amounts of times and in the minimum amount that you need. But hello, isn't that what we do anyway, Dr. Zhu? Don't you already tell your patients, only take what you need? So that's not new.
No, absolutely.
Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and get into that weekly dose. Shador, if you could go ahead and play the President Trump clip and then RFK Jr. On the FDA announcement.
Okay. You want to do the Trump clip first?
Yes, please.
To Chicago's very own WGN Midday News.
The FDA has started the process of requiring warning labels on Tylenol and other drugs that include acetaminophen. That's after President Trump and his medical advisors claim there's a possible link between the painkiller and autism, as well as ADHD. Good morning, I'm Ben Bradley in for Patrick Elwood.
And I'm Dina Bair. Thank you for joining us. WGN's Eric Rung is here now with more on our top story. Eric?
Well, good morning. The White House pointed to several studies to come up with this possible link. Many doctors, however, say the science just doesn't support it.
Anytime autism is making news, Sarah Fernandez pays attention.
Zoe has pretty profound needs.
Her 5-year-old daughter Zoe was diagnosed with autism 2 years ago.
She has a lot of struggles across the board.
Yesterday, Health and Human Services Secretary Robert Kennedy Jr. said the FDA would issue a warning to doctors of all potential risks of taking acetaminophen when you are pregnant.
And adverse neurodevelopmental outcomes, including later diagnosis for ADHD and autism.
Doctors, however, are more than skeptical about the FDA's warning.
We have decades of medical evidence and evidence-based research that demonstrates that it's absolutely not true. As an OBGYN and women's health warrior, I'd like to say that I'm just a little tired of politicians entering my exam room.
Right. That part.
Yep. Politicians. And Dr. Zhu, if you're anything like me, it's already been bothering us for like insurance companies when we prescribe medications and treatments that we know will work for our patients, but they're telling us, hey, try that substandard one that's cheaper first. So we've been dealing with insurance companies coming into our offices, but this is a historical moment to actually have people, the president, the head of HHS, stand from the most powerful platform, arguably in the world, and share information that's misleading and in some cases just not true. So yeah, Dr. Zhu, so to talk to my folks here on YouTube, IG, Facebook, the replay crew, should they be worried? And should pregnant moms who have children with autism feel guilty if they took Tylenol?
Oh my God. Thank you for saying that, because honestly, I thought about that briefly last week. Like, you're going to shame and blame. And why is it not the infection itself? It's that could cause the thing. We don't know. I'm not even saying that I know what the answer is. I don't know what the answer is. We don't know. We know that the science is out there, but that studies sometimes can get disputed and refuted, and vaccines do not cause autism. And there was a time, and there are still people, celebrities, who even speak to it with such matter-of-factness, that we have so many pregnant folks out there now who are not going to trust us. I mean, you know, just like I do, that there is such a distrust of medical professionals. So they're thinking, they must all have stock in Tylenol. That's why they trying to say
Right.
it's okay.
Right.
Ma'am,
Pushing pills on me.
sir,
Pushing pills on me.
push pills
Yeah.
on me. And I remember probably during the pandemic, saying on just my personal social media, do y'all know that we don't get paid like that? Like if you find out that a doctor is sitting on somebody's board or committee, that's one thing. But most of us, day in and day out, are truly trying to do the right thing by the patients. So we are not pushing a pill. You know, it's not as if I'm saying every day you should take Tylenol during pregnancy. No, we're saying we are worried that that temperature could get so high, if it's like you kind of mentioned already. Maybe, there's a concern for some kind of, anomaly, birth defect occurring, or maybe we're concerned about preterm labor. But oftentimes there's an underlying infection, right, that causes the elevation in the temperature anyhow. And the longer that goes on, the worse it can be for that particular pregnancy. So I worry, again, we fight all the things. And of course, this is just the latest thing. But patients are very skeptical about the advice that we give anyhow, way before you and I became physicians.
Right.
And we fight that every day. And I will just say, for those who really believe everything that comes out of those folks' mouths, I worry for them. I worry for my patients who, they don't trust the medical community, but yet they're going to trust, these statements and RFK and Trump, and they're going to think that there is some underlying reason why we are all like wanting them not to do well and prosper. And clearly that is not why we went into
medicine. That's not the case. And just a reminder, of course, they know that Donald Trump, everyone is not a physician, not a scientist, but RFK Jr., who is the head of Health and Human Services, he's not an MD, he's not a nurse, he's not a physician's assistant, he does not have an advanced degree in public health. And we had the CDC director, Dr. Susan Menarez, who was unceremoniously fired. She actually was an MD who trained at Emory. But now the replacement, at least the temporary replacement, Jim O'Neill, is not an MD. He does not have an advanced degree in public health. And so my recommendation to patients is to trust your doctors you've been trusting. Look at the major organizations. Look at Georgia State Medical Association, where Dr. Jew is president. Look at the American Medical Association. American College of Physicians came out, their head came out with a statement asking for RFK Jr. to resign. And we know it's not a right versus left issue, because Dr. Jew, a lot of these doctors, especially ones whose pocketbooks and stocks benefit from being on the right, a lot of them are diehard conservatives. When it comes to medicine, however, thankfully, we are meeting where the science is, where the evidence is. And so you'll see American Academy of Pediatrics, the Society of Maternal Fetal Medicine, the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecologists, all of the major medical associations where you have MD scientists who have studied this and who have practiced to first do no harm. Follow these organizations, follow the doctors you trust. And I'm so sorry that there's so much confusion, but when it comes to this FDA warning, should you be worried? Just keep calm and talk to your physicians you trust, and look at the major organizations. And Shador, we have another guest. I don't know if she's able to pop up. Are you able to see her, Shador? Shador, can you hear me?
She's here. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry about confusion with the links. Welcome.
Thank you.
We are. Oh, I'm so happy. I know you have to get out of here, so we're actually going to get to you right now. So this is our special episode of Politics versus Medicine here on the Dr. Frita channel. We're also excited because we're celebrating over 900,000 subscribers. So thank you to everyone who's here and who subscribed. And so my special gift to you is to get to hear from these medical brain powerhouses. You already met Dr. Ju. Dr. Ju delivers, our OBGYN, who's also the president of GSMA. And now you get to meet, it's the brain for me, Dr. Cicely Dowdell-Smith. Do you go by Dr. DS? What do you go by?
You know, I deal with the pediatric population, so I tell them they can pretty much call me what they want, but DS seems to be the easiest to go with for sure.
Look, and I was just talking to Dr. Ju. I did my my residency in Med Peds, and people loved the alliteration of FF, Frita Fisher. So you're right. The kids and the names, you just go with the flow and just
exactly
that they're listening. All right. So we've been talking about Tylenol in pregnancy, in autism, and we've been pretty much going over the science on how, even though there's been some correlation, there hasn't been causation. And so we've been talking to everyone who's listening and saying, hey, make sure that you understand that acetaminophen is the safest choice. And we talked about how fever during pregnancy can have consequences. It's not just about toughing it out. And so we talked about that. But one thing with these major announcements that has not been talked about too much is the leucovorin, because RFK Jr., President Trump, Dr. Oz, all of them were standing there as if they had the cure for autism, like they have magically unveiled the cure in leucovorin. And so I'm going to ask you about that leucovorin when it comes to autism. But first, I want to play the leucovorin clip to kind of give a little background for our viewers.
That pregnant women should avoid Tylenol overshadowed another important health headline this week. The FDA is in the process of approving a medication used by cancer patients. It's called leucovorin. It treats some symptoms of autism. Dr. Cicely Dowdell reported on this drug back in February, and her update is tonight's Eye in America.
There hasn't always been this much joy in Mason Connor's world.
Should we go on the boat?
His mom Caroline's concerns began around his first birthday.
He wasn't talking. No language. No words.
But their pediatrician didn't seem worried.
I think he just thought he was a boy and he would develop and everything would be fine and we would just wait. But no, nothing came. At 2.5, he was diagnosed with autism.
The Connors went on a mission, searching for anything that would help Mason.
We just started researching on our own, autism treatments, autism research. And that's when my husband, Joe, came across Dr. Fry in a research study that he was doing.
Can I look in your eyes? Yeah, there we go.
Child neurologist Dr. Richard Fry has been prescribing leucovorin to patients with autism for over 15 years.
So we have 3 stations set up.
It's an inexpensive generic drug derived from the vitamin folic acid and currently prescribed to ease side effects from cancer chemotherapy.
It is definitely something that's extremely promising and can be extremely helpful, but you need to know how to use it, who to use it on, and when to use it.
In some kids, folic acid, essential for brain development, can't get in. Leucovorin bypasses that blockage and can help some autistic kids improve their ability to speak. Mason's first words came just 3 days after he started taking leucovorin.
The baby was purple from head to toe.
This week, the Food and Drug Administration initiated the approval of leucovorin as a treatment for autism, despite there having been no large phase 3 clinical trials.
The fact that the FDA is trying to take action in a disorder which we've kind of ignored for 20 years as far as treatment, is admirable.
All right, Dr. DS, what say you? And make sure everyone listening, please go ahead and give us a like, a subscribe, a follow, because we are giving you evidence-based information so that we can cut back on the confusion.
Sure.
All right. So
I think the biggest thing to say and for us to realize is that there is not a cure for autism. I think so many of my patients and their families in this week have been kind of writing in, asking if I can just prescribe them some leucovorin. And I think that it is an interesting area where there needs to be more research, but there hasn't been large scale trials for us to know that this is something that can work. And I think the important part is we're like giving these things out in just enough manner without the actual science behind it, where people grasp onto this and then run with it. If you talk about what we know about the importance of folate, and Dr. Ju can attest to this, but just the importance of folate and the developing of the fetal brain, and that's why we need it as kind of pregnant mothers. And so if there have been some thoughts that if in patients who have autism, if they have a cerebral folate deficiency that's caused in a very specific manner. So it's not just, your brain's very specific in terms of what it lets in. And so even measuring your folate in your blood might not have anything to do with the folate that's kind of moving around in your brain. So there are receptors that let things into your brain. It's very particular. We're not letting everything up in there. And so there's receptors that let the folate go in. In some individuals with autism, the thought is that it's been found that they have antibodies to their receptors. So they don't let the folate in. This is not all patients with autism by any means, but in some, right? So you got to know who you are treating and who it might help. And so this leucovorin may be a path to bypassing this and helping some patients. But we don't know because there haven't been large scale trials. And so there's people writing in saying, can you just do a blood test? And you have to explain to them, it doesn't work like that. You don't test your blood folate. Now we know that this will work for you. This is not FDA approved, and people who are desperate and grasping at straws will try anything. And I think that's the sad part. Things that aren't approved, things that break the bank, we will go all out. And I think that's, when this has been for other manners of treatment as well, you see people spending their life savings for things that don't have any proven evidence. And I get it. As a parent, we want to do everything. So this is certainly an area that could use more research, and I'm sure that there will be, but I think the take-home message is that this has not been proven to be a cure for autism.
Okay. So, and this is very important because I noticed, Dr. Diaz, you didn't demonize leucovorin or say, oh, it's something that's bad or horrible for you, but you simply shared, we don't have enough evidence. In some children with autism, there is a possibility that it could help. I know there have been some studies limited that perhaps
very limited,
right, with improved.
And I had a patient come in today, who I treat for epilepsy. She has autism. She's so brilliant. She messages me on a communication board. Of course, they wanted to talk about this. I said these same things. Again, it's not about demonizing anyone. It's not about going against your beliefs. And of course, they wanted me to. I explained the same things. I did not prescribe leucovorin. And she wrote me this note today. She typed it out that said, I love your approach to medical advice. And this is somebody who didn't agree with, what I was saying. And I think being in a space of providing education, even when we don't agree, even when it might go against kind of what people are saying, that's the purpose of us doing this, so that we can come with science and medication and our background knowledge, as opposed to people who are just saying things without the knowledge, and people not having them be the only people, they're the only non-experts that they can grasp to, or what they're saying for kind of medical education.
Yes, and to all of my listeners here on the Dr. Frita Medical Monday, do understand that Dr. DS is a board certified pediatric neurologist. This is what she does. She is a brain doctor. She treats autism every day. Dr. Ju is a board certified OBGYN. She takes care of pregnant mothers. She advises them when they have pain. She advises them when they have fever. We have been board certified. This is what we do. We're not just, folks up there who are winging it. We have been trained on how to interpret data, how to read data. And so when we're giving these conversations, it's different than just a random opinion. We've all taken this very seriously, especially the first do no harm part. And when we get politicians who are saying things that go against the science, and we have mothers, coming and saying, should I be guilty? I saw one post where a mother said that her son, who is living with autism, has autism spectrum disorder, called her and he's like, Ma, did you take Tylenol when you were pregnant with me? And she did a whole post. She's like, first of all, I don't remember. You're 10 years old. She's like, but you know what? I also did yoga. Maybe yoga caused it. I also ate sandwiches. Maybe the sandwiches caused it. And she just made a whole thing about correlation versus causation. And I was on News Nation, was on Tuesday morning, I believe. If you check out my other sites at Dr.Frita, I have it posted on IG, Facebook, TikTok, you don't stop. But I was talking about causation versus correlation. And I talked to my kindergartners, how a bunch of kindergartners eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. A bunch of kindergartners get colds. There's a correlation. But peanut butter and jelly sandwiches don't cause colds. And Dr. Zhu, you brought up the point that when moms are taking acetaminophen, it's not just for fun. You know, pregnant moms are very careful about what they put in their bodies. There's a reason they're taking it. And so when you start talking about the association or correlation, how do we know that the fever that they're having or the inflammation in their bodies causing pain? How do we know that that's not the quote unquote cause, you know, or that that's not the whole, we don't know. And that's the point. You know,
And I
so
think that any non-medically minded person, that is a rational assumption, but that's why we're here. The patients that I see who have had their first seizure, whatever that patient was doing before the seizure happened, that's what the parent thinks it is. I had a parent who thought that it was Alfredo, and it took me 2 years to convince them that it wasn't. Twix, Capri Sun, it's like whatever was happening, and I get it. That's what we want to think, but that is why we are here, to help with our medical minds and our knowledge.
And can I ask a quick question, Dr. Diaz? Because I'm now concerned about the leucovorin, those women who will say, well, maybe I need to take it now because I don't want my next child to be, you know, diagnosed, right? And so I'm going to take it in pregnancy. Is there or I don't know that we know what the risks are taking it too much, too soon? Like, is there any...
I don't think that we know, right? And I do a whole kind of segment every now and then that's called "Just Because It's Natural Does Not Mean It's Safe." And I've covered all the good ones. I did elderberry, like I did all the things. You know, people like elderberry a lot, but I cover all of them. And I think we don't know doses, you know, and so, you know, I think that would be my honest thing to say. I really don't know. And this is a prescription. People get prescriptions for leucovorin. Now you'll probably run into places that will dole it out more easily now that this has come out. And so you have to watch that. But I think that is what I tell people. Just because it is natural does not mean it's safe. And if we don't have enough evidence, are you willing to risk that?
And, you know, there are drugs out there. I'm sorry, Dr. Frita. I was a part of, I went to the FDA 10 years ago, trying to help get another particular prescription pushed or approved, right? So I've had my own personal experience going before the FDA board, and I know how particular they are to get drugs and to just go bypass a whole purposeful phase clinical trials to understand not just the how, right? There's different phases to drug approval in this country, very stringent processes. And the latter stage to understand, you know, safety and efficacy, and has the drug company proven what they came here to prove, like we're just bypassing all of that. I think it's a bit concerning.
Yeah, that is concerning. And Shador, if you can come back up for the folks who are here in the chat, folks in IG, for folks on Facebook, of course, to my replay crew. I do want to see if we have any questions. We can get our members' questions.
Dr. Frita, I have to hop off for patient care.
Yes,
thank you for having me. I got a couple patients here, and I try not to be late in my visit, so I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining. And you can follow her at It's the Brain for Me. We'll have the link in our description.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So Shador, so do we have any questions so far?
Let me see here. They have a question about Tylenol from Miss Marilyn.
Hi, Miss Marilyn.
Not pertaining to pregnancy, but does Tylenol cause tinnitus? I take Tylenol 3 times a week for bone pain in my knee.
Oh, goodness. So the first thing I would do is have you to consult with your doctor about that. Is it the Tylenol? Is it something else? Do you have something else going on, like a Meniere's disease? And so there are all types of medicines that can possibly cause an issue, such as the tinnitus, but sometimes it's a combination. So for that one, I'm going to refer you to your doctor. I won't add on to the demonization of Tylenol, but there is a possibility depending on what else you're taking, but make sure you get a complete history and physical, and make sure that your middle ear, your inner ear is not having some type of inflammation or a different reason for you to have the tinnitus. Good question. Good question.
Coming from Ms. Aileen, she says, thank you, Dr. Aileen, for inviting Dr. Dowdell and Dr. Julianne to discuss the subject of Tylenol and autism. This is extremely beneficial and provides us with a clear understanding of the topic.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, I was very excited to have these guests. I'm like, you know what? We're talking this. Dr. DS actually treats kids with autism. This is what she's been doing. Dr. Ju treats pregnant women every single day. This is what she's been doing. And now we are faced with the politics versus medicine and kind of what to do. And so I have a question. I know we had a poll. Did we get a poll going, Shador?
Yeah, we did have a poll going today.
Okay, let's talk about the poll, please. How are we doing with that poll? Y'all know we're trying different things. Y'all please go ahead and give us a like, a follow, and subscribe.
So the poll asked, when advice differs with politicians and medical experts, who do you trust? Politicians or the medical experts? Overwhelmingly, 93% are saying medical experts.
Yay. And of course, we have a nice skew. If they're here, they know that here we are the medical experts. But it really is something, you know, I can only imagine. And y'all know, Dr. Ju, Shador, when you're pregnant, you're already on pins and needles. You know, you don't want anything you do to affect your baby. So now that these moms are getting phone calls from their autistic children, I saw another post of a lady who said that her husband called her. He said, I heard about, you know, Tylenol and autism. I just want you to know, I forgive you. That's what he said. And the mom said that she's like, my husband better be happy that I know that he has an odd sense of humor. She knew he was kidding because she said he would not be here talking about, I forgive you. They don't need any forgiving. There's no need to feel any type of a guilt or anything like that. Of course.
You know, I still worry about the other 7% who either didn't know how to answer that or may have answered the other way. That's concerning to me. And I get it, right? In our world today, like, who do you trust? I mean, I had these conversations with my husband. I'm like, people are skeptical of their CPA, their accountant. They're skeptical of the chef back in the restaurant, but you're going to the restaurant, you're skeptical that if they're cooking my food right, you're skeptical. Like, no one trusts anyone. You got a contractor coming to the house to look at the roof. You're skeptical about their ability. And you're skeptical about if a physician is the better choice to ask and get health advice from versus a politician.
And you're right. I'm all looking at 93%. Like, yay, we passed, we got an A. But you're right. That means that there's 7% of the people in this poll who are listening to the politicians over the physicians and all of the reputable medical organizations. And quite honestly, if there's a magical cure, why wouldn't we want to know it? You know, Dr. DS is literally a pediatric neurologist.
Mm-hmm.
Why wouldn't we share the one magical cure? You know, and if we knew that something was harming mothers, why wouldn't we? You know, why wouldn't we want to share it? And one thing I always say, Dr. Ju, is pay attention to what politicians do more so than what they say. You know, after we had C-19, the big lockdown, and we had so many people who were demonizing the messenger RNA vaccines and the C-19 vaccine. But when you looked at the president of the United States, President Trump had his vaccine. He got his COVID vaccine. And then also, you know, we have the recent announcement from the Florida Surgeon General saying that he wants to get rid of all school mandates for vaccines. Look, Trump even came out and was like, well, you know, it's not really controversial. A lot of vaccines are amazing. He was like, I think the polio vaccine is amazing. Some say the C-19 vaccine is amazing because I think people should get them. Look at the families. And RFK Jr.'s cousin, his first cousin, shared that all of his kids were vaccinated. And so when you start listening to advice, sometimes you should step back, and it's less about what the politicians say, but it's more about what they do. The billionaires, the people with access, what do they do? And you will find, I'm sure, that what they're doing is giving their pregnant wives acetaminophen and making sure that their children have vaccines to prevent diseases.
Right. Protect them. They want to protect their families. And I did just want to say, I'm not too familiar with the mix of your audience, but I just want to say, you mentioned trusting and having trustworthy. I always talk to folks about trustworthy relationships with physicians, right? When COVID came out, the breaking news about it, and they kept saying, call your doctor. And it reminded me that there are a high percentage of Americans who did not have a doctor. They go to the doctor when something is wrong. So they go to urgent care or an emergency room. So there's not a developed relationship. And I wanted to add to what you said earlier, that even Dr. Roger Mitchell, who is now president of the National Medical Association, he came out, I think, the next day and said, hey, we want RFK to step down. He was calling for him to step down and step aside. And I'm saying that because of your audience members who are in the minority. We know the studies that show that minority patients fare better health-wise when they have minority physicians who are caring for them. So I want to just encourage folks to make certain that you have a trust of even your physician. Don't just get a cold or wonder if it's flu, cold, RSV, what's going on, and go to down the street. That's fine in a pinch when you have to, but develop a relationship so that you can lean on your own healthcare doctor, just like you would call your CPA if there was a question you had about the finances and IRS were knocking at your door. You are going to go to someone you developed the relationship with. So just like you mentioned, the Georgia State Medical Association that I'm currently president of, we are physicians that take care of all people, but we have we have a little favoritism to make sure that those who are already marginalized, already, have dealt with misinformation, who have dealt with the Tuskegee, people like to say the Tuskegee experiment, but that left generations training their loved ones. You can't trust them. The people in the white coat. There's just ongoing distrust and mistrust in our communities. And I'm just hopeful that with your platform and all of those organizations that we are going to make a difference in what people are thinking and how they are acting for their loved ones. But to your point, people will, and even on COVID, said things out loud or in front of the camera, and then they were running and taking their kids to get that vaccine.
Running and getting the vaccine.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I appreciate your platform and your voice and what you're doing.
Thank you. And I appreciate you. And for anyone who wants to follow Dr. Ju, I encourage you to follow her, because not only does she have the knowledge, you also have some comical posts as well. I saw your post of you on the way to church the other day, but Dr. Ju delivers, J-U. You can follow her there. And now what I'll do, and I encourage you all to ask any questions that you have, anything to do with Tylenol and pregnancy, autism, the Leucovorin. And I do want to touch on a couple of other things. And with you, Dr. Ju, being the president of Georgia State Medical Association, this is going to come up if it hasn't come up. You know that we had the ACIP meeting, okay? And this was the group that when RFK Jr. became the head of HHS, he went in, he fired all 17 of the standing members, hired his own for the people who advise on immunization practices. And one of the things that they did in their vote on September 18th, September 19th is when they met. They voted initially that the MMRV vaccine, measles, mumps, rubella, chickenpox, that it would be approved. You could request it and that it would be covered by government insurance. But then the very next day, they did a 180 and they said it would no longer be recommended and insurance wouldn't cover it. You know who that affects first, right? Low income people, Black people, brown people, people in rural areas who didn't want to get a ride all the way to the city anyway, you know? So we've got that. But then the other thing, and this is what I want to talk about now, and we'll play a clip on hepatitis B. They were supposed to vote about hepatitis B. You know, Dr. Ju, when your babies are born and that first day of life, they get their hepatitis B vaccination. Right. But we've had, RFK Jr. and some others now in leadership saying that, hepatitis B is a sexually transmitted infection. Babies don't need it. And there's been some actually vulgar things that have been said reportedly by RFK Jr. prior to him taking office or being in the cabinet, but just really saying it's something that's unnecessary. But I do want to put some facts on that. What we do know is that prior to 1991, 1991 is when the hepatitis B vaccine became recommended for newborns. Prior to 1991, 20,000 children each year developed hepatitis B. And hepatitis B can lead to liver failure, cirrhosis, children needing transplants, children no longer being alive. Okay, so we had 20,000 hepatitis B infections each year in children prior to the vaccine. Since the recommendation of the hepatitis B vaccine at birth, 20 cases a year. 20. And in that case, that is a cause and effect. It is the beginning of the hepatitis B vaccine that's decreased it. So just for people thinking, oh, babies don't get hepatitis B, yes, they do. And so the clip I want to play is of Senator Cassidy, who's actually a Republican senator, Louisiana, and Dr. Ju, he's a physician. He's a liver doctor. And this is just a clip of him discussing the science and talking about how he has had children with liver failure, children who've passed away, and how he actually understands that vaccines help to cut back on preventable diseases. And it's just a reminder to us that this should not be a right versus left issue. Dr. Cassidy is just as right and Republican as he can be, and he's also pro-science, okay? So we could just play that hepatitis B clip, Shador.
Okay.
Politics. Before I was ever thinking about running for office, I practiced medicine for 30 years. I worked in public hospitals in California, Louisiana, specializing in liver disease, caring for those who otherwise would not have had a specialist. If you will, dedicating my life to saving lives. That is, being a doctor. That ethic guides me now. In my opening statement, I told the story of my patient, an 18-year-old girl with acute liver failure from hepatitis B being air ambulanced to LSU Shreveport Hospital for a liver transplant. Now, let me finish the story. Her mother wasn't allowed to fly in the helicopter, so her mother drove the 3 hours from Baton Rouge to Shreveport. Now, when she arrived, they let her visit her daughter before she went back to the OR. And the mom goes in to say a prayer, squeezes the daughter's hand. The daughter's eyes open, and she said, "Mama?" And the daughter began to recover. Powerful story with a happy ending. But as a doctor, I saw endings not so happy. I just had a friend text me, 2 children died in an intensive care unit in a Baton Rouge hospital from vaccine preventable diseases this past month. So my concern is that if there's any false note, any undermining of a mama's trust in vaccines, another person will die from a vaccine preventable disease. Now, you've got a megaphone. Maybe you and Bernie, Bobby and Bernie. Of everybody in this room, the 2 of you have the biggest followings, tremendous credibility. And with that influence comes a great responsibility. Now, my responsibility is to learn, try and determine if you can be trusted to support the best public health. A worthy movement called MAHA to improve the health of Americans, or to undermine it, always asking for more evidence and never accepting the evidence that is there. I looked at the article from Dr. Mawson, and it seems to have some issues. I'll just put that to the side. And that is why I've been struggling with your nomination. There are issues ultra-processed food, obesity, we are simpatico. We're completely aligned. And as someone who has discussed immunizations with thousands of people, I understand that mothers want reassurance that the vaccine their child is receiving is necessary, safe, and effective. We agree on that point, the 2 of us, but we've approached it differently. And I think I can say that I've approached it using the preponderance of evidence to reassure, and you have approached using selected evidence to cast doubt.
All right. Yes. So that is Republican Senator Cassidy just speaking science.
Yeah.
Just speaking science, right, Dr. Ju?
Right. But how did he ultimately vote?
He ultimately voted for RFK Jr. RFK Jr. reportedly promised that he would not alter the vaccine schedule. So he did it under that pretense. He got according to Cassidy, to Senator Cassidy, he said that RFK Jr. said that he would not mess with the vaccine schedules. And of course, since then, we see that he is, by the ACIP vote, saying that the measles, mumps, rubella, chickenpox vaccine would not be recommended, nor would it be covered. That's at least in that initial committee vote. Also, and we're looking at the Make America Healthy Again in Florida, with that Surgeon General saying that we're not going to have school mandates for vaccines. They're planning to ban those mandates. I'll also say this, when it comes to whooping cough, which is a preventable disease if you get the pertussis vaccine, Senator Cassidy went right back to him and he said, can you please encourage people to get the pertussis vaccine? Because in Louisiana, they've had more whooping cough cases than in the past 35 years, and they've already had children to pass away from whooping cough, a preventable disease. So he's now fussing and he's begging RFK Jr. to come back and keep his word. But he did vote for RFK Jr. He did walk that party line. I have to say, he verbally got him to promise not to mess with the vaccine schedule. It sounds like RFK Jr. did not keep his word.
Yeah. And hepatitis B, the thing about it is there are still millions of Americans, I think the latest number is like 2.4 million Americans who may have chronic hepatitis B. And how it is transmitted, there are people who are still walking around undiagnosed. Many pregnant people, they may be screened for, but the question always is, well, if I'm screening negative, do I need to still get my child? And we, of course, still recommend, ACOG still recommends that they get the vaccination. And that's great. I didn't even know the number. So it's dropped tremendously in our lifetime. And that's awesome. But until it is eradicated, the recommendation is still present, and as it should be. Because of different ways, of course, of transmission. I want to just speak before you wrap up. You mentioned the talk on politics in medicine. There's an importance to have politics, not necessarily mixed in medicine, but we, as even the lay public, we need to understand who we are voting for. Just as we were talking about specifically his confirmation or whatever. But when we are voting, you're voting for your school boards, you're voting for the local politics, far outweigh the impact then on your life, how much your energy bill is going to be year to year, right? There are committees and boards that we as Americans have the power. So if there is an issue near and dear to each of your hearts, you need to know that the people that you're voting for think like you, or hopefully vote like you, or if they're new, you need to press them on that. Go to maybe a panel that they are sitting on and ask those very vital questions, and not just wait every year for the big election every 4 years, because the impact is local, and it's local and it impacts. I think about the social determinants of health. I think about where I live, that there was a plant that was about to be started under, it kind of was quiet, and it was during COVID. So the citizens of that county didn't know it was going on. Yes, it was going to cause pollution of the air. Yes, there was going to be an impact. And that is a health crisis for young people, for pregnant people, and then the children that they are going to raise. Nobody wants to be smelling that, or inhaling that, or, climate change and crisis of diesel buses. I just recently learned that the kids sitting on buses and the driver who's driving them around the first couple of hours, they're being impacted more than the car that's in front of the bus or the back of the bus. Those fumes, all those chemicals that are coming into the bus. And then when you think about rural America, they have to go longer distances. So they are inhaling these fumes longer. And yes, they are carcinogenic. They are cancer-causing agents. They are maybe increasing risk of respiratory illnesses. And then, shockingly, I'm sorry, now I'm on a tangent, but they talked about when they put filters on these buses, how the math scores improved, English scores improved, behavior improved. Like that's reason why I'm saying we don't want to necessarily just always say blanketly that we need to separate politics from medicine. No, we need to think about those that we are putting in positions, and are they voting to keep us healthy and safe?
Agreed. All right. Well, Shador, can we take a peek and see if we have any other questions? Of course, we'll prioritize our members. I thank you, Dr. Ju. And again, to find her at Dr. Ju Delivers. AU. You can also be following, Georgia State Medical Association, GSMA, where she is the president, and you can be updated on the GSMA point of view anytime we have. Yep. All right. And also definitely make sure you give us a like and a follow. Again, thank you to all of my YouTube subscribers here on the Dr. Frita channel. We are up to over 900,000 subscribers. For everyone who's watching us from IG, Facebook, to my replay crew, I thank you. IG, make sure you check me out. I did a few things. I posted, I was on at Southern Sin, True Crime, okay? And we were talking about the David D4VD case and the young girl, Celeste, who was found reportedly dismembered in the trunk of his Tesla, the Frunk. And so we talk about that. I'm on there. I'm also I'm on a panel discussion. And so Judge Lauren Lakes of Fraternity Court is on the panel. Attorney Gerald Griggs, attorney Josh Schmidt's on there as well. It's a really good, robust discussion hosted by Dara Kennedy. So check that out. I have clips on IG. So just follow me. Those of you who follow me on YouTube, I have different things on different platforms. So follow me on all platforms. And I also went ahead and did a little post of the fun I had at the Links event that my aunt helped to organize and to host. And so I'm on there showing y'all what I got to show you. Just some fun, some things that are non-medicine. So, and of course, my one-stop shop is drfrita.com, where you can purchase my book, Under Pressure, A Guide to Controlling High Blood Pressure. And make sure, those of you on YouTube, once you finish this live, I did post a video last week. And what was I talking about? Nighttime habits. I talked about 5 nighttime habits that could secretly be causing CKD. So check that out. And Shador, we'll see if we have any questions. But meanwhile, Dr. Ju, let them know other places. I know I told them at Dr. Ju Delivers.
Yeah.
You have something else coming up.
So sure. Thank you. Again, so with GSMA, if you go on our YouTube page, it's GSMA-med. GSMA-med. I just started as one of my ideas I have brought to my presidency is to educate those of us who are in Georgia of all the things. I mean, just what is hypertension? What is obesity? How can we manage it? The most recent podcast was Dr. Michelle Staples-Horn, who is, I think her title, oh my gosh, but she helps with the juvenile detention and the healthcare there. So she talks about navigating your loved ones who are incarcerated. I'm trying to use the technical terms that I learned from her on that podcast. And then basically dealing with correctional medicine, right? And how that has not always been, but I think she said during Reagan's administration. Okay, now you got to go to the podcast just to see it, but it's GSMA-med. Dr. David Blake, our immediate past president, had a great one on hospice and end-of-life care. Yeah, it was great. So thank you for that opportunity. We're hoping to come to our communities and just share so that we can live healthier, wealthier, lives. It's so important. And what you're doing is so important.
Yeah.
Okay, I got patients now. So
okay. Now you have
Dr. Ju, before you go, what platform?
What's that?
Can they follow you on, Dr. Ju?
For me, Dr. Ju Delivers. I am on IG, Facebook. And if you go to my website, drjudelivers.com, you'll find me there. And my YouTube is at that name as well, Dr. Ju Delivers.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. So that was awesome. And of course, the first, our other guest was Dr. Cicely Dowdell-Smith, and she went by Dr. DS. You find her at It's the Brain for Me. And so you can click the link in our description. She does all kinds of great information, just like she said, just because it's natural, it's not good for you, where she goes on there. Plus, she actually has some really humorous posts. So Dr. Zhu has been my friend for years. And Shador, I don't even know if I shared this with you. When I was at a basketball game, one of the AAU basketball games for my son, I ran into Dr. DS. I had never met her. And so she's talking and she's like, hey, I follow you. And when I pick up her voice, I'm like, ah! And poor lady, I just grabbed her and hugged her because, sometimes I'd be thinking I know people just because I follow them on Instagram. Anyway, pray for me. But she was really warm in person as well, but she's very bright. So just make sure you follow her at It's the Brain for Me. She's someone who's a board certified pediatric neurologist, meaning she treats autism every single day. And so she does it from an evidence-based perspective. So make sure you follow her on social media platforms as well. And, maybe you can reach out to her in her DMs if you had some questions that you wanted to ask her. All right. So with that, make sure, again, you check out my one-stop shop, drfrita.com. Thank you to all of my members. I'm sliding over because today is our day for the members only live Q&A. If you're not a member, it's not too late to join. And then you can come up on the stage. You can ask in the chat, where we'll spend the next time strictly answering medical questions to my members. And for those of you who want a one-on-one discussion with me, I do offer a telehealth concierge service. And we're having great success with that. And I can talk to you from anywhere in the world. Okay. So just click the link in the description, or again, go to my one-stop shop, drfrita.com. All right. Anything closing, Shador? Shall we slide on to the left?
Let's slide to the left.
All right. Thank you all for joining. Shador, thank you for being my co-host. Members, I'll see you in just a second.